Today on Arts for Life's virtual studio, we'll be making a color-filled painting inspired by Alma Woodsey Thomas. Stay tuned and I'll let you know how Alma's work inspired me and what supplies you need. Hi everyone, my name is Kelsey and I'm the Inpatient Program Coordinator at Brenner's Children's Hospital. Welcome to our virtual studio where we believe that art is for everyone. Today we'll be making a color-filled painting inspired by Alma Woodsey Thomas. Alma was an important role model for women, Black artists, and older artists. She was born in 1891. As a kid and teenager, she always loved and made a lot of art. She went to college at Howard University and was the first person to graduate from their School of Fine Arts in 1924. She became a teacher and wasn't recognized for her art until she retired. She developed her signature style in her 70s. Alma created color-filled paintings in which the focus of the artwork is solid colors. She used patterns and bright colors that look like a mosaic. She was inspired by the colors and shapes of nature. Like music, Thomas's patterns create rhythm in her pieces. Alma was the first African American artist to have a show at the famous Whitney Museum in New York City. She died in 1978, but her work is still very famous today. Michelle Obama picked her piece Resurrection to hang in the White House in 2015. So for our Alma inspired painting today, we're going to use watercolors. So you'll need some watercolors, watercolor paper, or any kind of thick paper. You don't want to paint on thin paper because it will tear really easily. Also need, you might need a pencil depending on what style you're most inspired by from Alma's painting, and a paintbrush and a cup of water. Might be a good idea to have a paper towel around just for watercolors in case you need to dab your brush. So I'm gonna move it. So I really love Alma's circular paintings. So I'm gonna start with that, and I'm gonna use my water cup, and I'm gonna start with a circle off center on my paper. So right here. And just trace that circle. And a light pencil, you don't want to, whenever you're tracing anything, you want to go light-handed with your pencil. And I kind of noticed in a lot of Alma's paintings that she goes from kind of darker, cooler colors or darker colors and gets kind of brighter. She uses a lot of bright colors. So I'm going to start with like a really dark blue because I love blue. And I am going to just use one paintbrush the whole time. I picked a square paintbrush because a lot of her shapes in her paintings are little rectangles, and so you always want to kind of pick a paintbrush that matches the shape that you want to paint. So come over here and get some blue, and if you haven't done a lot of watercolors, the more water you add, the less saturated the color will be, meaning you won't have as much color on your brush. So if you mix it more like I'm doing now, you're gonna get a darker color. And I actually picked purple instead of blue once I went over there. So I'm gonna fill in this circle, and this is gonna be my starting point for this painting. And when we're doing these, we really want to think about our colors, because that's really what makes Alma's paintings so special, is those big blocks of solid colors. So she also did a lot of line paintings, as you saw when we were showing her work. So you could also do that if you wanted and not start with a circle. Alright, then I'm going to wash my brush off in my water. And she moves from colors She usually does a couple colors together that are similar, so like purple, blue is in purple, so now I'm gonna do some blue. And what I like to do whenever I paint like this is move my paper, because I think that's a little bit easier. So I'm just gonna draw a line, and I'm gonna leave white spaces in between. So, and see how my color's getting a little less as I paint. I'm gonna just dab it again so I can get that dark color again. And depending on how dark you want your color, you can keep doing that. And if you look closely at Alma's paintings, her shapes aren't exactly all the same. So it's okay if yours are a little bit different shapes too. Like my rectangles aren't there, but using this rectangle brush makes it a little bit easier for me to get nice rectangle shapes. And I'm just gonna go back a few over these. And if I wanted to come back and make some of these darker, I could do that later. Sometimes it's easier with watercolors to add color after it dries. Okay. And if you have a really big brush, you might get too much water, so you just want to tap the end of your brush on your water cup to make sure you're not really dripping, or else it's easy to get paint where you don't want it to go. You have more control the less water you're using with watercolors. So I'm going to keep with my cool colors and use a different blue over here. And I'm just going to keep going around. You can see I have a little bit more water on this one. And if I wanted to come back, and I'm moving my paper so I don't have to move my hand, because if you get like this, it's really awkward sometimes, so it can be hard. I'm gonna get a little more paint because I'm getting a little lighter. And I'm just gonna keep going around. And that one's really dark, so I can get actually still some paint from this square and move it over here. Okay, wash my brush. Wash and tap. You could also do this with acrylic paints or tempera paints. Really any paints you have would work. I like watercolors because the cleanup is a little bit easier. I'm going to go back to purple. And I want a thinner line this time, so I'm going to use the tip of my brush instead of laying it flat like this. I'm going to hold it a little straighter and just do a line. So if you use the end of a paintbrush, you can get a lot of different shapes out of one paintbrush, depending on which part you let touch the paper. So because I'm just letting the tip touch, I'm getting a nice flat line. Turn my paper again. And I'm turning my paper way more often than I'm moving my hand. My hand is mostly staying here, if you can see that. All right. I'm gonna do one more thing of like a blue-green color. And this is a pretty big watercolor palette. They have all kinds of watercolors, so my next color I'll mix it in case if you don't have this many watercolors in your set. That's okay, because watercolors are quite easy to mix, and I think mixing your own colors in art is better anyways, because then you can get exactly what you want instead of just what they give you. You really only need red, yellow, and blue colors because you can make every other color. And you might need black and white. with those primary colors. Okay. So finish that circle, and I'm just keeping it, going it around. Okay, now I'm gonna use this purple, and I'm gonna use, most watercolor sets have a top right here that has these little levers, and that's a really good place for mixing because you can get more water and you can just drop it in there. The more water you have in this area, the lighter your color will be because it's less diluted. But I kind of want a purple, but then I'm also going to add some blue into my purple because I want kind of a really deep bluey purple. So if you're just learning to mix colors, start with 2 at a time and see what you get, because if you don't know what colors make other colors, you don't want to mix more than 2 together or you're likely to get brown. So now I should have a nice purple blue, and purples and blues are darker, so it's a little bit harder to see what color I'm going to have, but I'll notice once I put on my paper. And I accidentally just spilled a little on my paper, but that's okay. It might look cool. So nice, I like that, I'm happy with that. And if I didn't, I could come back, maybe add a little bit more blue in there. But I'm okay with that. And then I have a nice thing I'm just gonna keep dipping in there. When I get to the edge of my paper, it's a good idea to have actually something behind. This is an art table, so it's okay if I paint on it, but if you don't have an art table where you are, put something underneath of your paper so that you don't paint on the table. It also makes it a little nicer. So I've got some blues, greens, and purples, which are all cool colors. I'm gonna switch to warm colors now for the outside. I know Alma was inspired by nature a lot, and I'm kind of been inspired by all the flowers around my neighborhood lately. The purples and the blues. We have some hydrangeas in my neighbor's yard that are so vibrant and beautiful. And then surrounded by the nice sunny sunshine of nature. So whenever you use a dark color like purple or blue, you want to make sure you wash out your brush really well because it's easy, especially on a yellow, which is a really light color, or this yellowy orange color that I'm using, to get a dark color in there, and then you're going to get kind of a brown murkiness. So if you wipe your brush off on a paper towel and your paper towel is clear, that's good. If you didn't get very much water in your brush, you could change your water too, and that might help you get clear colors, especially with watercolors where you're using a lot of water. If you want to do this project with a different type of paint, like tempera or acrylic, you definitely want to use a paper towel or an old rag to dry off your brush, because you don't want too much water when you want to paint like little blocks of color like this. You can mix water with those, but that's better if you're painting a lighter, like large area, or if your paint gets too thick, you can do it. So see, my yellow is looking like a little murky, but I'm kind of into it. All right. And I'm just going to keep doing this till the end of my paper. So not too simple. If you haven't painted a lot before and your shapes are not looking exactly like you want them, they'll probably get better as you keep going. So make one of these to practice, and then you could make another one. I'm going to keep going with my warm colors. You could put these closer together if you wanted, or I'm leaving a little bit more space. I really like this red orangey color, dark orange. Yep, and I just smeared that a little bit. So another reason you want to start in the middle, or if you're doing lines like some of Alma's painting where you're just drawing lines down, if you're right-handed, you want to start on the left side. If you're left-handed, you want to start on the right side so you don't get smears. And I'm going to use the tip of my paintbrush again to do this. And I only have a little bit longer in the corner over here. Let's see, I think for the edge of mine I'm going to do the rest in yellow. So one thing that I love about Alma Woodsey Thomas's work is it's so cheerful and bright, and so it's just really I can't look at it without smiling and say I hope that this painting does that for you too. So let me turn that so you can see the whole thing in the frame. Thank you so much for tuning in to Arts for Life's virtual studio. I hope you really enjoyed creating with me today. Here's my finished painting. I hope you love yours and it makes you smile as much as Alma Thomas's works makes me smile. If you want to share it with us, please post it in the comments or tag us Arts for Life NC. I can't wait to see your Alma inspired paintings. I'm sure they are so beautiful. And remember, art is for everyone.